In the quiet of the evening, where shadows softly play, a fairy tale wolf sheds his skin, gently drifting away, with a twinkle in his eye and a heart full of dreams. He waits for the Friday night glow, where the magic redeems. Oh, the wolf in the moonlight, he's found his true call, reading tales of wonder for one and for all. In a world of stars dancing, his spirit takes flight, with stories of beauty under the starlit night. He picks up a book, the pages worn and wise, every line a whisper under the vast skies, from far off lands where the wild things roam, to enchanted forests where the heart finds home. Oh, the wolf in the moonlight, he's found his true call, reading tales of wonder for one and for all. In a world of stars dancing, his spirit takes flight, with stories of beauty under the starlit night. With every word he reads, he casts a spell of peace, transporting all who listen to a land where joy won't cease. For in these fairy tales, amidst the laughter and tears, the wolf finds his solace, he conquers his fears. As the night grows deeper, he serenades the moon with melodies that linger, a soft and soothing tune. In this sacred hour, where magic abounds, the fairy tale wolf writes love into sound. Oh, the wolf in the moonlight, he's found his true call, reading tales of wonder for one and for all. In a world of stars dancing, his spirit takes flight, with stories of beauty under the starlit night. So if you hear a whisper beneath the silver skies, know it's the fairy tale wolf letting his heart rise.
Okay, I did not expect that to try to loop. Uh-huh. Maybe. Epinephrine. Oh, okay. Anyway, it's Friday. It is a night for telling fairy tales. Or if you're on my YouTube channel, the mummy's premiering right now. But anyway, I think I got the timing down for that song, except I don't think I told it to loop. I don't know how I was going to. I'm trying to figure out new music, which unfortunately means me going back to Songer. But Songer has some really cool music that comes out. Just hate that I have to rely on AI to get music. But it's commercial use and it's free, mostly. and I own it when it's done. So, not that I think anyone will ever use my music for anything else. And I typically write a paragraph or so for what I want the music to be based on. If I was any good at writing music or writing songs, I'd try it. But that is neither here nor there, nor anywhere else. But welcome in, Leon. Thank you for coming in. I usually give it a few minutes before I go over to the library to read stories, so I give a little time to chat. So, hopefully your week has been good. I wonder if I need to recalibrate my model. I did an update on my camera's driver, so that might be part of it. A wild shooter has appeared in chat, if anyone wants one of those. I honestly can't remember what I have one. But this is pretty much how I designed the bookstore. Normally, well, I used to have my cat camera over this window on my right side. But where I set up the camera, the cats are refusing to sleep, so my cat camera doesn't do any good. And I really need to get better music for in here. I mean, it's a bookstore, so I'm not really sure what kind of background music I'd have. Though I guess I should start decorating for Halloween. Though I may not have a live stream on Halloween, because it looks like I've only got maybe 2 weeks worth of reading left in this book, so today, next week, well, that only gets me to the 14th. Well, not the 14th, the 24th. No, I guess that's right. No. So next week would be the 17th, so I wouldn't have anything for the 24th. I don't want to start another book until after Halloween. But I've only got 10 stories left in this book. I'm not sure if I want to try to get back into the Lovecraft for the week before Halloween. But Halloween is on a Friday, so I don't know what I'll be doing for that Friday night. Unless I just leave the candy abandoned on my porch and keep an eye on my camera to see if the kids stay legitimate. Or at least don't take more than they need. But honestly, I've got some candy. I've got a lot of candy, and I don't really think I'm going to eat it all. I'd rather give it to trick-or-treaters. But lately, trick-or-treaters have been a little sparse. Even though we've got more kids living in the neighborhood now. I don't know. Okay, that person not banned by. Sorry about the last time. Oh wait, I forgot to update Kelly's messaging today. Kel, I want you to take note that we are doing fairy tales, so you will be speaking more Dr. Seuss rhymes. rested. Okay, that should be good. Dun, 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 dun. Hold on. See what it said. See what she says about you. Interesting. Oh, the places they'll go. This will fun, as you see. A tragic hero, perhaps, but fun as can be. From Diablo to Pokemon and Blue Protocol, too. This variety streamer's got games for me and you. They speak English and Spanish and LGBTQI plus friendly. It's true. A himbo with dry humor. Oh, what a view. One fish, two wish. Wolfish, blue fish. Kel? I need to fix which follower modes you have access to. That way you can actually put them in a message again. I think I set it up when I had... Well, I wonder if I can do the 7 that way. I don't know. But anyway, I'm babbling like a fish. So let's go to the right screen for fairy tales. Okay. My fireplace is rather loud today. Let me turn that down some. Okay. Oh. It is 9:08. I want to get through at least 4 stories today. So we'll get into it. Everyone, settle back, relax, and I'll get into our first story for this evening's fabulous Friday night of fairy tales. From the Laplandish Marlation, The Fox and the Lapp. Once upon a time, a fox lay peeping out of his hole, watching the road that ran by at a little distance, and hoping to see something that might amuse him. He was feeling very dull and rather cross. For a long time he watched in vain. Everything seemed asleep, and not even a bird stirred overhead. The fox grew crosser than ever, and he was just turning away in disgust from his place when he heard the sound of feet coming over the snow. He crouched eagerly down at the edge of the road and said to himself, "I wonder what would happen if I were to pretend to be dead. This is a man driving a reindeer sled. I know the tinkling of the harness, and at any rate I shall have an adventure, and that is always something." So he stretched himself out by the side of the road, and carefully choosing a spot where the driver could not help seeing him, yet where the reindeer would not tread on him, and all fell out just as he had expected. The sled driver pulled up sharply, his eyes lighted on the beautiful animal lying stiffly beside him, and jumping out, he threw the fox into the bottom of the sled, where the goods he was carrying were bound tightly together by ropes. The fox did not move a muscle, though his bones were sore from the fall, and the driver got back to his seat again and drove on merrily. But before they had gone very far, the fox, who was near the edge, contrived to slip over. When the Laplander saw him stretched out in the snow, he pulled up his reindeer and put the fox into one of the other sleds that was fastened behind. for it was market day at the nearest town, and the man had much to sell. They drove on a little further, when some noise in the forest made the man turn his head, just in time to see the fox fall with a heavy thump into the frozen snow. "That beast is bewitched," he said to himself. Then he threw the fox into the last sled of all, which had a cargo of fish. This was exactly what the cunning creature wanted, and he wiggled gently in front and bit the cord which tied the sled to the one before it, so that it remained standing in the middle of the road. Now, there were many sleds that the Lapp did not notice for a long while that one was missing. Indeed, he would have entered town without knowing if snow had not suddenly begun to fall. Then he got down to secure more firmly the cloth that kept his goods dry, and going to the end of the long row, discovered that the sled containing the fish and the fox was missing. He quickly unharnessed one of his reindeer and rode back along the way it had come, to find the sled standing safely in the middle of the road. But as the fox had bitten off the cord close to the noose, there was no means of moving it away. The fox, meanwhile, was enjoying himself mightily. As soon as he had loosened the sled, he had taken his favorite fish from among the piles neatly arranged for sale, and trotted off to the forest with it in his mouth. By and by he met a bear who stopped and said, "Where'd you get that fish, Mr. Fox?" "Oh, not far off," answered he. "I just stuck my tail in the stream close to the place where the elves dwell, and the fish hung itself on it." "Dear me," snarled the bear, who was hungry and not in the best of tempers. "If the fish hung on your tail, I suppose he will hang on mine." "Oh, yes, certainly, grandfather," replied the fox, "if you have the patience to suffer what I suffered." "Of course I can," replied the bear. "What nonsense you talk! Show me the way." So the fox led him to the bank of the stream, which, being in a warm place, had only lightly frozen in places, and was at this moment glittering with the spring sunshine. "The elves bathe here," he said. If you put your tail, the fish will catch hold of it, but it will be no use being in a hurry, or you will spoil everything." And he trotted off, but only went out of sight of the bear, who stood still on the bank, with his tail deep in the water. Soon the sun set, and it grew very cold, and the ice formed rapidly, and the bear's tail was fixed as tight as if a vice had held on to it. And when the fox saw that everything had happened just as he had planned it, he called out loudly, "Be quick, good people! Come with your bows and spears! The bear has been fishing in your brook!" In a moment the whole place was full of little creatures, each with a tiny bow and a spear hardly big enough for a baby. But both arrows and spears could sting, as the bear well knew, and in his fright he gave such a tug to his tail that it broke off short, and he rolled away into the forest as fast as his legs could carry him. At this sight, the fox held his sides for laughing, then scampered away in another direction. But by and by he came to a fir tree and crept into a hole in the roots. After that he did something very strange. Taking one of his hind feet between his two front paws, he said softly, "What would you do, my foot, if someone was to betray you?" "I'll run as quickly that he could catch me not." "What would you do, mine ear, if someone was to betray me?" "I would listen so hard that I should hear all his plans." "What would you do, my nose, if someone was to betray me?" "I would smell so sharply that I should know from afar that he was coming." "What would you do, my tail, if someone was to betray me?" "I would steer you so straight a course that you would soon be beyond his reach. Let us be off. I feel as if danger is near." But the fox was comfortable where he was, and did not hurry himself to take his tail's advice. Before long he found he was too late, for the bear had come round another path, and guessing where his enemy was, began to scratch at the roots of the tree. The fox made himself as small as he could, but a scrap of his tail peeped out, and the bear seized it and held tight. Then the fox dug his claws into the ground, but was not as strong as the bear, but to pull against it, and slowly he dragged forth, and his body flung over the bear's neck. In this manner they set out down the road, the fox's tail always being in the bear's mouth. After they had gone some way, they passed a tree stump on which a bright-colored woodpecker was tapping. "Ah, those were better times when I used to paint all the birds with gay colors," sighed the fox. "What are you talking about, old fellow?" asked the bear. I was saying nothing," answered the fox drearily. "Just carry me to your cave and eat me up as quick as you can." The bear was silent and thought of his supper, and the two continued their journey till they reached another tree with a woodpecker tapping on it. "Ah, those were the better times when I used to paint all the birds with such gay colors," said the fox again to himself. "Couldn't you paint me too?" asked the bear suddenly. But the fox shook his head, for he was always acting, even if no one was there to see him. "You bear pain so badly," he said in a thoughtful voice. "You are impatient, besides, and could never pull up all that is necessary. Why, you would first have to dig a pit, and then twist ropes of willow, and drive in posts to fill the hole with pitch, and last of all, set it on fire. Oh, no, you would never be able to do all that." "It does not matter a straw how hard the work is," answered the bear eagerly. "I will do every bit." And as he spoke, he began tearing up the earth so fast that soon the deep pit was ready, deep enough to hold him. "That is all right," said the fox at last. "I see I was mistaken in you. Now sit here, and I will bind you." So the bear sat down on the edge of the pit, and the fox sprang on his back, which he crossed with the willow ropes, and then set fire to the pitch. It burnt up in an instant and caught the bands of willow and the bear's hair. But he did not stir, for he thought that the fox was rubbing the bright colors into him, and he would soon be as beautiful as the whole meadow of flowers. But when the fire grew hotter, still he moved uneasily from one foot to the other, saying imploringly, "It is getting rather warm, old man." But all the answer he got was, "I thought you would never be able to suffer the pain like those little birds." The bear did not like being told he was not as brave as a bird, so he set his teeth and resolved to endure anything sooner than speak again. But by this time the last willow band had burned through, and with a little push the fox sent his victim tumbling into the grass, and ran off to hide himself in the forest. After a while he stole cautiously and found, as he expected, nothing left but a few charred bones. These he picked up and put in a bag, which he slung over his back. By and by he met a Lapp driving his team of reindeer along the road, and as he drew near, the fox rattled the bones gaily. "That sounds like silver or gold," thought the man to himself, and he said politely to the fox, "Good day, friend. What have you got in your bag that makes such a strange sound?" "All the wealth my father has left me," answered the fox. "Do you feel inclined to bargain?" "Well, I don't mind," replied the Lapp, who was a prudent man and did not wish the fox to think him too eager. "But show me first what money you've got." "But I can't do that," answered the fox. "My bag is sealed up. But if you will give me those 3 reindeer, you shall take it as it is, with all contents." The Lapp did not quite like it, but the fox spoke with such an air that his doubts melted away. He nodded and stretched out his hand. The fox put the bag in it, and unharnessed the reindeer he had chosen. "Oh, I forgot!" exclaimed he, turning around as he was about to drive them the opposite direction. "You must be sure not to open the bag until you have gone at least 5 miles, right on the other side of those hills over there. If you do, you'll find that all the gold and silver will be changed to a parcel of charred bones." Then he whipped up his reindeer and was soon out of sight. For some time, the Lapp was satisfied with hearing the bones rattle, and thinking to himself what a good bargain he had made, and all of the things he would buy with the money. But after a bit, this amusement ceased to content him. Besides, what was the use of planning when you did not know for certain how rich you were? Perhaps there might be a great deal of silver and only a little gold in the bag, or a great deal of gold and only a little silver. Who could tell? He would not, of course, take the money out to count it, for that might bring him bad luck. But there could be no harm in just a little peep. So he slowly broke the seal and untied the strings. Behold, a heap of burnt bones lay before him. In a minute he knew that he had been tricked, and flinging the bag to the ground in a rage, he ran after the fox as fast as his snowshoes would carry him. Now, the fox had guessed exactly what would happen, and was on the lookout. Directly he saw the little speck coming towards him, and he wished that the man's snowshoes might break. In that very instant, the Lapp's shoes snapped in two. The Lapp did not know that this was a fox's work, but he had to stop and fetch one of his other reindeer, which he mounted, and set off in pursuit of his enemy. The fox soon heard him coming, and this time he wished that the reindeer might fall and break its leg. And so it did. And the man felt it was a hopeless chase, and that he was no match for the fox. So the fox drove on in peace till it reached the cave where all his stores were kept, and then he began to wonder whom he could get to help him kill his reindeer, for though he could steal reindeer, he was still a bit too small to kill them. After all, it will be quite easy, thought he, and he bade a squirrel, who was watching him on the tree close by, to take a message to the robber beasts of the forest. And in less than half an hour, a great crashing of branches was heard, and bears and wolves and snakes, mice and frogs and other creatures came pressing up to the cave. When they heard why they were summoned, they declared themselves ready, each one to do his part. The bear took his crossbow from his neck and shot the reindeer in the chin, and from that day to this, every reindeer has a mark in the same spot, which is always known as the bear's arrow. The wolf shot him in the thigh, and the sign of his arrow still remains, and so with the mouse and the viper and all the rest, even the frog, and at last the reindeer all died. Then the fox did nothing but looked on. "I really must go down to the brook and wash myself," he said, though he was perfectly clean, and he went under the bank and hid himself behind a stone. From there he set up the most frightful shrieks, so that the animals fled away in all directions. Only the mouse and the ermine remained as they were, for they thought that they were much too small to be noticed. The fox continued his shrieks till he felt sure that the animals must have got a safe distance. Then he crawled out of his hiding place and went to the bodies of the reindeer, which he now had all to himself. He gathered a bundle of sticks for a fire and was just preparing to cook a steak when his enemy, the Lapp, came up, panting with haste and excitement. "Oh, what are you doing here?" he cried. "Why did you palm those bones on me? And when did you got the reindeer, why did you kill them?" "Oh, my dear brother," answered the fox with a sob, "do not blame me for this misfortune. It is my comrades who have slain them in spite of my prayers." The man made no reply, for the white fur of the ermine, who was crouching in the mouse behind some stones, had just caught his eye. He hastily seized an iron hook which flung over the fire and flung it at the little creatures. But the ermine was too quick for him, and the hook only touched the top of his tail, and that has remained black to this day. As for the mouse, the Lapp threw a half-burnt stick after him, and though it was not enough to hurt him, his beautiful white skin was smeared all over with it, and all the washing in the world would not make him clean again. And the man would have been wiser if he had let the ermine and the mouse alone, but when he turned around again, he found that he was alone. Directly the fox noticed that his enemy's attention had wandered from himself and watched his chance, and stole softly away until he reached a clump of thick bushes. Then he ran as fast as he could till he reached a river, where the man was mending his boat. "Oh, I wish I had a boat to mend too," he cried, sitting up on his hind legs, looking at the man's face. "Stop your silly chatter," answered the man crossly, "or I will give you a bath in the river." "Oh, I do wish I had a boat to mend," cried the fox again, as if he had not heard. And the man grew angry and seized him by the tail and threw him far out in the stream close to the edge of an island, which was just what the fox had wanted. He easily scrambled up, and sitting on the top, he called, "Hasten, hasten, O fishes, and carry me to the other side." And the fishes left the stones where they had been sleeping, and the pools where they had been feeding, and hurried to see who could get to the island first. "I've won!" shouted the pike. "Jump on my back, dear frog! Jump on my back, dear fox, and you will find yourself on thrice the opposite shore." "No, thank you," answered the fox. "Your back is much too weak for me. I should break it." "Nice try," said the eel, who had wriggled to the front. "No, thank you," replied the fox again. "I should slip over your head and would be drowned." "You won't slip on my back," said the perch, coming forward. "No, really, you are too tough," answered the fox. "Well, you'll find no fault with me," said the trout. "Good gracious, are you here?" exclaimed the fox. "But I'm afraid to trust myself with you either." At this moment, a fine salmon swam up slowly. "Ah, yes, you are the person I want," said the fox, "but come near so that I may get on your back without getting my feet wet." So the salmon swam close under the island. When he was touching it, the fox seized him with his claws and drew him out of the water, and put him on a spit, where he kindled a fire to cook him. When everything was ready, and the water on the pot was getting hot, he popped him in, and waited till he thought the salmon was nearly boiled. But as he stooped over the water, it gave a sudden fizzle, and splashed in the fox's eyes, blinding him. He started backwards with a cry of pain, and sat still for some minutes, rocking himself to and fro. When he was a little better, he rose and walked down the road till he met a grouse, who stopped and asked what was the matter. "Have you a pair in your eyes anywhere about you?" asked the fox politely. "No, I haven't," answered the grouse, and passed on. A little while after, the fox heard the buzzing of an early bee, whom a gleam of sun had tempted out. "Do you happen to have an extra pair of eyes somewhere?" asked the fox. "I'm sorry to say I have only those I am using," replied the bee, and the fox went on till he nearly fell over an asp who was gliding across the road. "I should be so glad if you would tell me where I can get a pair of eyes," said the fox. "I suppose you don't happen to have any you could lend me?" "Well, if you only want them for a short time, perhaps I could manage," answered the asp. "But I can't do without them for long." "Oh, it is only for a very short time that I need them," said the fox. "I have a pair of my own just behind that hill, and when I find them I will bring yours back to you. Perhaps you will keep these till then." So he took out his eyes of his head and popped them into the head of the asp, put the asp's eyes in their place. As he was running off, over his shoulder, he cried, "As long as the world lasts, the asp's eyes will go down in the heads of foxes from generation to generation." And so it has been. And if you look at the eyes of an asp, you will see that they are all burnt. And though thousands and thousands of years have gone by since the fox was going about playing tricks upon everybody he met, the asp still bears the traces of the day when the sly creature took the salmon. Well, that story wandered everywhere. Okay. Our next story for this fabulous Friday Night Fairy Tales from the Nordländischen Volksmärchen, Kisa the Cat. Once upon a time there lived a queen who had a beautiful cat, the color of smoke, with china blue eyes, which she was very fond of. The cat was constantly with her and ran after her wherever she went, and even sat up proudly by her side when she drove out in her fine glass coach. "Oh, pussy," said the queen one day, "you are happier than I am, for you have a dear kitten just like yourself, and I have nobody to play with but you." "Oh, don't cry," answered the cat, laying her paw on her mistress's arm. "Crying never does any good. I will see what can be done." The cat was as good as her word. As soon as she returned from her drive, she trotted off to the forest to consult a fairy who dwelt there. Very soon after, the queen had a little girl, who seemed made out of snow and sunbeams. The queen was delighted, and soon the baby began to take notice of the kitten as she jumped about the room, and would not go to sleep at all unless the kitten lay curled up by her. 2 or 3 months went by, and though the baby was still a baby, the kitten was fast becoming a cat, and one evening, when, as usual, the nurse came to look for her and put her in the baby's cot, she was nowhere to be found. What a hunt there was for that kitten, to be sure. The servants, each anxious to find her, as the queen was certain to reward the lucky man, searched in the most impossible places. Boxes were opened that could hardly have held the kitten's paw. Books were taken up from bookshelves, lest the kitten should have gotten behind them. Drawers were pulled out, for perhaps the kitten might have got shut in. But it was all of no use. The kitten had plainly run away, and nobody could tell if it would ever choose to come back. Years passed away, and one day when the princess was playing ball in the garden, she happened to throw her ball a little further than usual, and it fell into a clump of rose bushes. The princess, of course, ran after it at once, and as she was stooping down to feel if it was hidden by the long grass, she heard a voice calling for her. "Ingeborg, Ingeborg," it said, "have you forgotten me? I'm Kisa, your sister." "But I never had a sister," answered Ingeborg, very much puzzled, for she knew nothing of what had taken place so long ago. "Don't you remember how I always slept by your cot beside you, and how you cried till I came? But girls have no memories at all. Why, I could find my way straight up to the cot this moment if I were once inside the palace." "Why did you go away then?" asked the princess. But before Kisa could answer, Ingeborg's attendants arrived breathless on the scene, and were so horrified at the sight of a strange cat that Kisa plunged into the bushes and went back to the forest. The princess was very much vexed with her ladies-in-waiting for frightening away her old playfellow, and told the queen, who came to her room every evening to bid her good night. "Yes, it is quite true what Kisa said," answered the queen. "I should have liked to see her again. Perhaps some day she will return, and then you must bring her to me." The next morning it was very hot, and the princess declared that she must go and play in the forest, where it was always cool, under the big shady trees. As usual, her attendants let her do anything she pleased, and sitting down on a mossy bank where a little stream trickled by, she soon fell asleep. The princess saw in delight that they would pay no heed to her, and wandered on, expecting every moment to see some fairies dancing around a ring, or some little brown elves peeping at her from behind a tree. But alas, she met none of these. Instead, a horrible giant came out of his cave and ordered her to follow him. The princess felt much afraid, for he was really big and ugly, and because she felt sorry that she had strayed within reach of help, but there was no use in disobeying a giant, she walked meekly behind him. They went a long way, and Ingeborg grew very tired, and at length began to cry. "I don't like girls who make horrid noises," said the giant, turning round. "But if you want to cry, I will give you something to cry for." And drawing an axe from his belt, he cut off both her feet, which he picked up and put in his pocket, and then he went away. Poor Ingeborg lay on the grass in terrible pain, and wondering what she should do or stay there until she died, as no one would know where to look for her. How long it was since she had set out this morning she could not tell. It seemed like years to her. Of course, the sun was so high in the heavens when she heard the sound of wheels. And then, with a great effort, for her throat was parched with fright and pain, she gave a shout. "I'm coming!" was the answer. In another moment the cart made its way through the trees, driven by Kisa, who used her tail as a whip to urge the horse to go faster. Directly Kisa saw Ingeborg lying there, and jumped quickly down, and lifting the girl carefully by her front two paws, laid her upon some soft hay, and drove her back to her own little hut. In the corner of the room was a pile of cushions, and these Kisa arranged as a bed. Ingeborg, who was this time laying faintly, as though, well, from what all she had gone through, drank greedily some milk, and then sank back on the cushions while Kisa fetched some dry herbs from a cupboard, soaked them in warm water, and tied them on the bleeding legs. The pain vanished at once, and Ingeborg looked up and smiled at Kisa. "You may now go to sleep," said the cat, "and you will not mind if I leave you for a little while. I will lock the door, and no one can hurt you." But before she had finished, the princess was asleep. Then Kisa got into the cart, which was standing at the door, and catching up the reins, drove straight to the giant's cave. Leaving her cart behind some trees, Kisa crept gently up to the open door, and crouching down, listened to what the giant was telling his wife, who was at supper with him. "First day that I can spare, I shall go back and kill her," he said. "It would never do for people of the forest to know what a mere girl can defy me." And he and his wife were so busy calling Ingeborg all sorts of names for her bad behavior that they never noticed Kisa stealing into a dark corner and upsetting a whole bag of salt into a great pot before the fire. "Dear me, how thirsty I am!" cried the giant by and by. "So am I," answered his wife. "I do wish I had taken the last spoonful of broth. I'm sure something was wrong with it." "If you don't get some water, If I don't get some water, I shall die," said the giant. And rushing out of the cave, followed by his wife, he ran down the path which led to the river. Then Kisa entered the hut, and lost no time in searching every hole until she came upon some grass, under which Ingeborg's feet were hidden, and putting them in her cart, drove back to her own hut. Ingeborg was thankful to see her, for she had lain too frightened to sleep, trembling at every noise. "Oh, it is you!" she cried joyfully as Kisa turned the key, and the cat came in, holding up the two neat little feet in their silver slippers. "In 2 minutes they shall be as tight as they ever were," said Kisa, and taking some strings of the magic grass which the giant carelessly heaped on them, she bound the feet to the legs above. "Of course I won't be able to walk for some time. You must expect that," she continued. "But if you are very good, perhaps in about a week, I may carry you home again." And so she did. And when the cat drove the cart up to the palace gate, lashing the horse furiously with her tail, and the king and queen saw her lost daughter sitting beside her, they declared that no reward could be too great for the person who had brought her out of the giant's hands. "We will talk about that by and by," said the cat, as she made her best bow, and turned her horse's head. The princess was very unhappy when Kissa left her without even bidding her farewell. She would neither eat nor drink, nor take any notice of all the beautiful dresses her parents had brought her. She will die if we can't make her laugh, one whispered to the other. Is there anything in the world that we have left untried? Nothing except marriage, answered the king, and he invited all the handsomest young men he could think of to the palace, and bade the princess choose a husband from among them. It took her some time to decide which she admired the most, but at last she fixed upon a young prince, whose eyes were like the pools of the forest, and his hair like bright gold. The king and queen were greatly pleased, as the young man was the son of a neighboring king, and they gave orders that a splendid feast should be got ready. When the marriage was over, Kissa suddenly appeared before them, and Ingeborg rushed forward and clasped her in her arms. "I have come for my reward," said the cat. "Let me sleep for this night at the foot of your bed." "Is that all?" cried Ingeborg, much disappointed. "It is enough," answered the cat. And when morning dawned, there was no cat that lay upon the bed, but a beautiful princess. "My mother and I were both enchanted by a spiteful fairy, and she said we could not be our free selves though we had done some kindly deed that's never been wrought before. My mother died without ever finding a chance to do anything new, but I took advantage of the evil act of the giants to make you as whole as ever." Then they were more delighted than ever, and the princess lived in the court until she, too, was married and given away a govern of her own. Princesses turned into cats. Yet no one ever reports a cat princess is missing. The next story I will go ahead and do. It's a little bit longer than Kisa the Cat was. And hopefully if I see the ads pop up, I will pause them so we can get through it, okay? So our third story for this fabulous Friday night of fairy tales. The Lion and the Cat. Far away on the other side of the world there lived, long ago, a lion and his young brother, the wild cat, who were so fond of each other that they shared the same hut. The lion was much bigger and the stronger of the two. Indeed, he was much bigger and stronger than any of the beasts that dwelt in the forest. Besides, he could jump further and run faster than all the rest. If strength and swiftness could gain him dinner, he was sure never to be without one. But when it came to cunning, both the grizzly bear and the serpent could get the better of him, and he was forced to call in the help of the wild cat. Now, the young wild cat had a lovely golden ball, so beautiful that you could hardly look at it, except through a piece of smoked glass, and he kept it hidden in his thick muff fur that went around his neck. A very large old animal, since dead, had given it to him when he was hardly more than a baby, and had told him never to part with it, for as long as he kept it, no harm could ever get near him. In general, the wild cat did not need the use of this ball, for the lion was fond of hunting and could kill all the food that they needed. But now and then his life would have been in danger had it not been for the golden ball. One day the two brothers started to hunt at daybreak, but as the cat could not run nearly as fast as the lion, it had gotten a long start. At least he thought he had a long one. But in very few bounds and springs, the lion reached his side. "There is a bear sitting on that tree," he whispered softly. "He's only waiting for us to pass to drop down on my back." "You are so big that he does not see that I'm behind you," answered the wild cat. And touching the ball, he said, "Bear, die." And the bear tumbled dead out of the tree and rolled just in front of them. For some time they trotted without any adventures, till just as they were about to cross a strip of long grass on the edge of the forest, the lion's quick ears detected a faint rustling noise. That is a snake, he answered, stopping short, for he was much more afraid of snakes than he was of bears. Oh, it is all right, answered the cat. Snake, die. And the snake died. And the two brothers skinned it. Then they folded up the skin into a very small parcel, and the cat tucked it into his mane, for snakeskins can do all sorts of wonderful things if you're lucky enough to have one of them. All this time they had no dinner, for the snake's flesh was not nice, and the lion did not like eating bear. Perhaps because he never felt sure that the bear was really dead and would not jump up alive when his enemy went near him. Most people are afraid of something, and bears and serpents were the only creatures that caused the lion's heart to tremble. So the two brothers set off again, and soon reached the side of the hill where some fine deer were grazing. Kill one of those deer for your grown brother, said the boy brother, but catch me one alive. I want him. The lion at once sprang towards him with a loud roar, but the deer bounded away, and they were all three soon lost to sight. The cat waited for a long while, but finding that the lion did not return, he went back to the house where they lived. It was quite dark when the lion came home, where his brother was sitting curled up in one corner. Did you catch the deer for me? Answered the boy brother, springing up. Oh, no, said the man brother. The fact is that I did not get up to them till we had run halfway across the world and left the wind far behind us. I think what a trouble it would have been to drag it here, so I just ate them both. The cat said nothing, but he did not feel that he loved his big brother. He had thought a great deal about that deer, and had meant to get on it to ride him as a horse, and so see all the wonderful places the lion talked to him about when he was in a good temper. The more he thought about it, the more sulky he grew, and in the morning, when the lion said it was time for them to start the hunt, the cat told him that he might kill the bear and the snake by himself, as he had a headache, and would rather stay at home. The little fellow knew quite well that the lion would not dare to go out without him, for his ball of fear of meeting the bear or snake. The quarrel went on, and for many days neither of the brothers spoke to each other, and what made them still more cross, that they could get very little to eat, and we know that people are often cross when they get hungry. At last it occurred to the lion that if he could only steal the magic ball, he could kill bears and snakes for himself, and then the cat might be as sulky as he liked, for anything else would be matter. How was he going to steal it? The cat had the ball hung around his neck day and night, and he was such a light sleeper that it was useless to think of taking it while he slept. No, the only thing was to get him to lend it to him of his own accord. And after some days, the lion, who was not at all clever, hit upon a plan that he thought would do it. Dear me, how dull it is here, said the lion one afternoon, when the rain was pouring down in such torrents that, however sharp your eyes and nose might be, you could not spy a single bird or beast among the bushes. Dear me, how dull, how dreadfully dull I am. Couldn't we have a game of catch with that golden ball of yours? I don't care about playing catch. It does not amuse me, answered the cat, who was as cross as ever, for no cat, even to this day, ever forgets an injury done to him. Well, then, lend me the ball for a little, and I will play by myself, replied the lion, stretching out his paw as he spoke. You can't play in the rain, and if you did, you would only lose it in the bushes, said the cat. Oh, no, I won't. I'll play in here. Don't be so ill-natured. And with very bad grace, the cat untied the string and threw the golden ball into the lion's lap, and composed himself to sleep again. For a long while the lion tossed it up and down gaily, feeling that, however sound asleep the boy brother might look, he was sure to have one eye open. But gradually he began to edge closer to the opening, and at last he gave such a toss that the ball went high up into the air, and he could not see what had become of it. Oh, how stupid of me! Oh, how stupid of me! He cried. No, this was supposed to be that. Sorry. "Oh, how stupid of me!" he cried. The cat sprang up angrily. "Let us go at once and search for it. It can't have fallen very far." But though they searched that day and the next after that, they never found it, because it never came down. After the loss of the ball, the cat refused to live with the lion any longer, but wandered away to the north, always hoping he might meet with his ball again. But months passed, and years passed, and though he traveled over hundreds of miles, he never saw any traces of it. At length, when he was getting quite old, he came to a place unlike that which he had been before, where a big river rolled right to the foot of some high mountains. The ground all around the river bank was damp and marshy, and no cat likes to get its feet wet. This one climbed a tree that rose above the water, and thought sadly of his lost ball, which he would have helped him out of this horrid place. Suddenly he saw a beautiful ball, for all the world like his own, dangling from a branch of the tree he was on. He longed to get at it, but the branch was strong enough to bear his weight. There was no use, after all he had done, getting drowned in the water. However, they could do no harm if he was to only go a little way, and somehow manage to get back somehow. So he stretched himself at full length upon the branch, and wriggled his body cautiously along. To his delight, it seemed thick and stout. Another movement, and he stretched out his paw, and he would have been able to catch the string towards him, when the branch gave a loud crack, and the cat made haste to wiggle himself back the way he had come. But when cats make up their minds to do anything, they generally do it. And this cat began to see if there was really no way of getting his ball. Yes, there was, and it was much surer than the other, though rather more difficult. Above the bough where the ball was hung was another bough, much thicker, which he knew would not break under his weight. So holding on tight with all his four paws, he could manage to touch the ball with his tail. He would thus be able to whisk the ball to and fro till by and by the string would become quite loose and would fall to the ground. It might take some time, but the lion's little brother was patient, like most cats. Well, it all happened just as the cat intended it should, and when the ball had dropped to the ground, the cat ran down the tree like lightning, and picking it up, tucked it away in the snakeskin around his neck. Then he began jumping along the shore of the big water from one place to another, trying to find a boat, or even a log of wood that would take him across. But there was nothing, only on the other side he saw two girls cooking, and though he shouted at them at the top of his voice, they were too far off to hear what he said. And what was worse, the ball suddenly fell to the snakeskin bag, right into the river. Now, it is not at all an uncommon thing for balls to tumble into rivers, but in this case they generally either fall to the bottom, or stay there, or else bob about on top, close to where they first touched it. But this ball did neither of these things, and went straight across to the other side, and there one of the girls saw it, and she stooped to pick some water up into her pail. "Oh, what a lovely ball!" she cried, and tried to catch it with her pail. But the ball always kept bobbing just out of her reach. "Come and help me!" she called to her sister, and after a long while they had the ball safe inside the pail. They were delighted with their new toy, and one or the other held it till it came to be bedtime. And then it was a long time before they could make up their minds where would be the safest. At last they locked it up in a cupboard in one of the corners of their room, and there was no hole anywhere the ball could possibly get out. After that they went to sleep. In the morning, the first thing they did was to run to the cupboard and unlock it. But when the door opened, they turned back, for instead of a ball, there stood a handsome young man. "Ladies," he said, "how can I thank you for what you have done for me? Long, long ago, I was enchanted by a wicked fairy, and condemned to be in the shape of a ball till I could meet two maidens who would take me into their home. But where was I to meet them? For 100 years I have lived in the depths of the forest, where no but wild beast ever came, and it was only when a lion threw me into the sky that I was able to fall near the earth and the river. Where there is a river, Sooner or later there would be people, so hanging myself on a tree, I waited and watched. For a moment I lost heart when I fell for some of the hands of my old master, the wildcat, but my hopes again rose when he was making for the riverbank opposite where you were standing. That was my chance, and I took it. Now, ladies, I have only to say that if ever I can do anything to help you, go to the top of the high mountains and knock 3 times at the iron door at the north side, and I will come for you. So, with a low bow, he vanished before them, leaving the maidens weeping at having lost both in one moment the ball and the prince. Not bad. I did have to pause the stream, but we will get rid of those nasty ads, or at least watch those nasty ads, and we'll be back in a few. Okay, welcome back everyone. The ads should be done. We're going to try to get 2 more stories. So our 4th tale for this fabulous Friday Night of Fairy Tales, which has very Interesting pronunciation of the title. Which was the Foolishest? In a little village that stood on a wide plain where you could see the sun from the moment he rose to the moment he set, there lived two couples side by side. The men, who worked under the same master, were quite good friends, but the wives were always quarreling. And the subject they quarreled about most, which of the two had the stupidest husband. Unlike most women who think that anything that belongs to them must be better than that belongs to anyone else, each thought that her husband was the more foolish of the two. You should see what he does, one said to her neighbor. He puts on the baby's frock upside down, and one day I found him trying to feed her with boiling soup, and her mouth was scalded for days after. Then he picks up stones in the road and sows them instead of potatoes. And one day he wanted to go to the garden from the top window because he declared it was a shorter way than through the door. That is bad enough, of course, answered the other. But this is really nothing to what I have to endure every day from my husband. If, when I am busy, I ask him to go and feed the poultry, he is certain to give them some poisonous stuff instead of their proper food. And when I visit the yard next, I find them all dead. Once he even took my best bonnet when I had gone away to my sick mother, and when I came back, I found out that he had given it to the hen to lay her eggs in. And you know yourself that, only last week, when I went to buy a cask of butter, he returned driving 150 ducks, which somebody had induced him to take, and not one of them would lay. Yes, I'm afraid that he is trying, responded the first. But let us put them to the proof, and see which of them is the most foolish. So, about that time that she expected her husband home from work, she got out her spinning wheel and sat busily turning it, taking care not even to look up from her work when the man came in. For some minutes he stood there with his mouth open, watching her, and she was still remaining silent, and said less. Have you gone mad, wife, that you are sitting spinning without anything on the wheel? You may think there is nothing on it, answered she, but I can assure you that there is a large skein of wool, so fine that nobody can see it, which will be woven into a coat for you. Dear me, he replied, what a clever wife I've got. If you had not told me, I should have never known that there was any wool on this wheel at all. But now I really do seem to see something. The woman smiled and was silent, and after spinning busily for an hour more, she got up from her stoop and began to weave as fast as she could. At last she got up and said to her husband, I'm too tired to finish it tonight, and I shall go to bed, and tomorrow I shall only have the cutting and stitching to do. So the next morning she got up early, and after she had cleaned her house and fed her chickens and put everything in its place again, she bent over the kitchen table, and the sound of her big scissors might be heard, snip, snap, as far as the garden. Her husband could not see anything to snip at, but then he was so stupid it was not surprising. After cutting came the sewing. The one padded and pinned and fixed and joined, and then turning to the man, she said, Now it is ready for you to try on. And she made him take off his coat and stand up in front of her, and once more she padded and pinned and fixed and joined, and was very careful in smoothing out every wrinkle. It does not feel very warm, observed the man at last, and when he had borne all this patiently for a long time. That's because it's so fine, answered she. You do not want it to be as thick as the rough clothes you wear every day. He did, but he was ashamed to say so, and only answered, Oh, I'm sure it must be beautiful since you say so, and I shall be smarter than anyone in the whole village. What a splendid coat, they will exclaim when they see me, but it is not everybody who has a wife as clever as mine. Meanwhile, the other wife was not idle. As soon as her husband entered, she looked at him with such a look of terror that the poor man was quite frightened. Why do you stare at me so? Is anything the matter? asked he. Oh, go to bed at once, she cried. You must be very ill indeed to look like that. The man was rather surprised at first, as he felt particularly well that evening, but the moment his wife spoke, he became quite certain that he had something dreadful the matter with him, and he grew quite pale. "I dare say it would be the best place for me," he answered, trembling. And he suffered his wife to take him upstairs and to help him off with his clothes. "If you sleep well during the night, there may be a chance for you," said she, shaking her head, as she tucked him in warmly. "But if not—" And of course the poor man never closed an eye till the sun rose. "How do you feel this morning?" asked the woman, coming in tiptoe with her housework was finished. "Oh, very bad indeed," answered he. "I have not slept for a moment. Can you think of nothing to make me better?" "I will try everything that is possible," said the wife, who did not in the least wish her husband to die, but had determined to show that he was more foolish than the other man. "I will get some dried herbs and make you a drink, and I am very much afraid that it is too late. Why did you not tell me this before?" "I thought perhaps the pain would go off in a day or two, and besides, I did not want to make you unhappy," answered the man, who was by this time quite sure he was suffering tortures, and had borne them like a hero. "Of course, if I had had any idea how ill I really was, I should have spoken at once." "Well, well, I will see what can be done," said the wife. "But talking is no good for you. Lie still and keep yourself warm." All that day the man lay in bed, and whenever his wife entered the room and asked him, with a shake of the head, how he felt, he always replied that he was getting worse. At least in the evening she burst into tears. When he inquired what was the matter, she sobbed out, "Oh, poor, poor husband, are you really dead? I must go tomorrow and order your coffin." When the man heard this, a cold shiver ran through his body, and at once he knew that he was as well as he had ever been in his life. "Oh, no, no," he cried. "I feel quite recovered. Indeed, I think I shall go for a walk." "You will do no such thing," replied his wife. "Just keep quiet. Before the sun rises, you will be a dead man." The man was very frightened at her words, and lay absolutely still, while the undertaker came and measured him for his coffin, and his wife gave orders to the grave digger to dig his grave. That evening the coffin was sent home, and in the morning at 9 o'clock the woman put him in a long flannel garment, and called to the undertaker's men to fasten down the lid and to carry him to the grave, where all their friends were waiting for them. Just as the body was being placed in the ground, the other woman's husband came up running, dressed, as far as anyone could see, and no clothes at all. Everybody burst into shouts of laughter at the sight of him, and the men laid down the coffin and laughed too, till their sides nearly split. The dead man was so astonished at this behavior that he peeped out of a little window in the side of his coffin and cried out, "I should laugh as loud as any of you if I were not a dead man." When they heard the voice coming from the coffin, the other people suddenly stopped laughing, and stood as if they had been turned into stone. Then they all rushed in one accord to the coffin, and lifted the lid so that the man could step out amongst them. "Were you not dead after all?" they asked. "If not, why did you let yourself be buried?" At this, both wives confessed that they had each wished to prove the husband was stupider than the other. But the villagers declared that they could not decide which was the more foolish, the man who allowed himself to be persuaded that he was wearing fine clothes when he was wearing nothing, or the man that let himself be buried when he was still alive and well. So the women quarreled just as much as they did before, and no one ever knew whose husband really was the most foolish. "Not dead yet. I think I'll go for a walk." Actually, the story says I will go to work, but I wanted to throw the Monty Python line in there just for the hell of it. "I'm feeling better." Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and do 5 stories, and then we'll go ahead and read out. Okay? Then I'll have 5 more stories left in the book, and that'll cover next week. Maybe. Then I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do the week between. Who knows? Maybe I'll just whip out the girl and go again. Anyway, our 5th story for this fabulous Friday night of fairy tales. Asmund and Signy. Long, long ago, in the days when fairies, witches, giants, and ogres still visited the earth, there lived a king who reigned over a great and beautiful country. He was married to a wife whom he loved dearly, and had 2 most promising children, a son called Asmund, and a daughter who was named Signy. The king and queen were very anxious to bring their children up well, and the young prince and princess were taught everything likely to make them clever and accomplished. They lived at home in their father's palace, and he spared no pains to make their lives happy. Prince Asmund dearly loved all outdoor sports and an open-air life from his earliest childhood, yet longed to live entirely in the forest close by. After many arguments and entreaties, he succeeded in persuading the king to give him 2 great oak trees of his very own. "Now," he said to his sister, "I will have the 2 trees hollowed out, and I will make them rooms and finish them so that I might be able to live in the forest." "Oh, Asmund," cried Signy, "what a wonderful idea! Do let me come too and live in one of your trees. I'll bring all my pretty things and ornaments, and the trees will be so near home we shall be quite safe in them." Asmund, who was extremely fond of his sister, readily consented, and they had had a very happy time together, carrying over all their pet treasures and Signy's jewels and other ornaments, and arranging them in the pretty little rooms inside the tree. Unfortunately, sadder days were to come. A war with another country broke out, and the king had led his army against their enemy. During his absence, the queen fell ill, and after lingering for some time, she died, to the great grief of her children. They made up their minds to live all together for a time in their trees, and for this purpose they had provisions enough stored up inside to last them a year. Now, I must tell you, in another country a long way off, there reigned a king who had only one son named Ring. Prince Ring had heard so much of the beauty and goodness of Princess Signy that he determined to marry her, if possible. So he begged his father to let him have a ship for the voyage, and set sail with a favorable wind, and after a time landed in the country where Signy lived. The prince lost no time in setting out for the royal palace, and on his way there he met such a wonderfully lovely woman that he felt he had never seen such beauty in all his life. He stopped her and at once asked who she was. "I am Signy, the king's daughter," was the reply. Then the prince inquired why she was wandering out by herself, and she told him that since her mother's death she was so sad that whilst her father was away, she preferred being alone. Ring was quite deceived by her, and never guessed that she was not Princess Signy at all, but a strong, gigantic, wicked witch bent on deceiving him under a beautiful shape. He confided to her that he had traveled a long way from his own country for her sake, having fallen in love with the accounts he had heard of her beauty, and then he and there asked her to be his wife. The witch listened to all he said, and, much pleased, ended by accepting the offer. But she begged him to return to his ship for a little while, as she wished to go some way further into the forest, promising to join him later on. Prince Ring did as she wished, and went back to the ship to wait, while she walked into the forest till she reached the 2 oak trees. Here she resumed her own gigantic shape, and tore up the trees by their roots, and threw one of them over her back, and clasped the other to her breasts, and carried them down to the shore, and waded outwards into the ship. She took care not to be noticed until she reached the ship, and directly got on board she once more changed to her former lovely appearance, and told the prince that her luggage was all now on board. and that they need wait for nothing else. The prince gave orders to set sail at once. After a fine voyage, landed in his own country, where his parents and his only sister received him with the greatest joy and affection. The false Signy was also very kindly welcomed. A beautiful house was got ready for her, and Prince Ring had the 2 oaks planted in the garden just in front of her windows, so that she might have a pleasure of seeing them constantly. He often went to visit the witch, whom he believed to be Princess Signy. One day he asked, "Don't you think we might be married long?" "Yes," she said, quite pleased. "I'm quite ready to marry you whenever you like." "Then," said Ring, "let us decide on this day fortnight. And see, I have brought you some stuff to make a wedding dress of." So saying, he gave her a large piece of the most beautiful brocade, all woven over with gold thread and embroidered with pearls and other jewels. The prince had hardly left her before the witch resumed her proper shape and tore about the room, raging and storming and flinging the beautiful silk on the floor. "What was she to do with such things?" she roared. "She did not know how to sew to make clothes, and she was sure to die of starvation into the bargain if her brother Ironhead had not come soon. Bring her some raw meat and bones, for she really could eat nothing else." She was raving and roaring in a frantic manner. Part of the floor suddenly opened, and a huge giant rose up carrying a great chest of arms. The witch was enchanted at this sight, and eagerly helped her brother to set it down and open the chest, which was full of the ghastly food she had been longing for. The horrid pair set to greedily devouring it all, and when the chest was quite empty, the giant put it on his shoulder and disappeared as he had come, without leaving a trace of the visit. But his sister did not keep quiet for long, and tore and pulled at the rich brocade, as if she wanted to destroy it, stamping about and shouting angrily. Now, all this time, Prince Asmund and his sister sat in their trees just outside the window, and saw all that was going on. "Dear Signy," said Asmund, "do try to hold on to that piece of brocade and make clothes for yourself, for really we shall have no rest night or day with such noise." "I will try," said Signy. "It won't be an easy matter, but it's worthwhile taking some trouble to have a little peace." So she watched for an opportunity, and managed to carry off the brocade the first time the witch left her room. And then she set to work, cutting and sewing as best she could. By the end of 6 days she had turned it into an elegant robe with a long train and mantle. When it was finished, she climbed to the top of a tree and contrived to throw out the clothes to the table through the open window. How delighted the witch was when she found the clothes all finished. The next time Prince Ring came to see her, she gave to him and he paid her many compliments on her skillful work, after which he took leave of her in the most friendly manner. But he had scarcely left the house when the witch began to rage furiously as ever, and never stopped until her brother Ironhead reappeared. When Asmund saw all these wild doings from his tree, he felt he could no longer keep silence. He went to Prince Ring and said, "Do come with me and see the strange things that are happening in the new princess's room." The prince was not a little surprised, but he consented to hide himself with Asmund behind this paneling of the room, from where he could see all that went on through a little slit. The witch was raving and roaring as usual, and said to her brother, "Once I am married to the king's son, I shall be better off than now. I shall take care to have all the pack of courtiers put to death, and then I shall send for all my relations to come and live here instead. I fancy the giants will enjoy themselves as much with me and my husband." When Prince Ring heard this, he fell into such a rage that he ordered the house to be set on fire, and it was burnt to the ground, with the witch and her brother inside. Asmund then told the prince about the 2 oak trees, and took him to see them. The prince was quite astonished at them, and at all their contents, but still more so at the extreme beauty of Signy. He fell in love with her at once, and entreated her to marry him, which, after a time, she consented to do. Asmund, on his side, asked for the hand of Prince Ring's sister, which was gladly granted him, and the double wedding was celebrated with great rejoicings. After this, Prince Asmund and his bride returned to his country to live with his father, the king. The two couples often met and lived happily for many years. And that is the end of the story. And I guess I'm cutting the stream a little short. Which is fine, I guess, right? So I want to leave stories for next week. Because after that one, I really do just have 5 stories left in the Brown Fairy book. Because I'll have Rubizal, the story of the king who would be stronger than fate, the story of Wally Dad, the simple-hearted, Tale of a Tortoise and the Mischievous Monkey, and the Knights of the Fish. So, 5 stories for next week, and we will be done with the Brown Fairy book. But for now, I hope you all have a wonderful evening and a magnificent Friday night. Try not to get haunted too badly, because you know it is that time of year. I'll try to get the bookstore decorated a little at least. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful night. And I think, let's double check who I'm going to read. Let's see. Silent Hill, Ghost of Yuletide. Is it last week's Silent Hill? Yeah. Guess I know who we're going to read. And who knows? Maybe the raid will be a jump scare. But good night, everyone.
Not so long ago, in a world full of strife, a man born a wolf, living a dual life. With magic in his veins, he walked the school hall, learning the arts, answering the call. But fear was a cloak he had to wear tight, hiding his truth, keeping darkness from light. Those who were scared turned away in despair, yet he bore the burden, he chose to take care. Now the times have changed, the monster's no longer scared. He's retired from magic, but his stories still flare, with tales of heroes, of legends so grand, selling dreams of the past across this vast land. In the shadows he lingered, where darkness would creep, protecting those kindly, never losing sleep. A guardian of secrets, a keeper of lore, he wandered through echoes, hearts wanting much more. No longer the wolf, but a sage with a pen, turning back the pages, reliving back then. His stories weave magic in the minds of the young, of battles and trials, where songs will be sung. Now the times have changed, the monster's no longer scared. He's retired from magic, but his stories still flare.